Hey everyone, it's iWuShock with another video in my information series. Today I'm going to start a new one just on familiars. I'm going to break them down based on what tier you're in and what you might need. I won't be going over every single familiar available though, just some of the more impressive ones at each tier. In this video, for example, I'm just going to be going over tiers 1 and 2. I'm stopping there because in tier 3 you open up world boss and expedition, invasion, all of that, and so many more get opened up. So I just want to start with some of the basic ones right now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with some background information. First, what is a familiar? Familiars are the enemies that you face in Bit Heroes, which can be persuaded to join your team. Every single one that you see can be obtained to be on your team, even the biggest, baddest bosses. Some of them though will need to be fused. Fusions require a schematic and a certain number of certain familiars. For example, Shramps might need a schematic, 1 Shrump, and then 1 Gramps. These fused familiars have more stats than unfused and will often have significantly better bonuses on them. Speaking of bonuses, familiars can equip things called augments. They make your familiars stronger and stronger with different bonuses. You can actually equip up to 3 pumps, which correlate to the major runes, adding to things like dual strike, damage reduction, block. The bone up here can be equipped acting kind of like a meta rune, adding things like increased heals when you're under a certain level of health, redirect, empower on first hit, etc. These can be crafted in the smithy with various materials. Next would be the chip in the upper right hand shoulder. These are found as random drops as you adventure through the game. And then they have other small bonuses on them. Finally, you have the brain that comes at the very top. These are the same as your own pet slot. Probably the most important thing that you can get for them. Has heal when you get hit, attack the team when you hit an enemy, gain shield every time you have a turn, and so many other combinations. These are found in the shop or through weekly rewards. All of these can actually be crafted with mythic materials at the mythic level, but not below. They also get stronger as you stable your familiar. What is stabling? Well, stabling is when you have more than one of the same familiar. You can board it into the stable and it will get stronger. Every time you stable a familiar, it gains 2% more stats and will make each one of its augments stronger. Brains will have a higher percent chance to actually activate, your pumps will have higher numbers on them, they just get stronger. You can actually stable up to 5 of the same familiar, so to get a max level familiar you need 6, 5 in the stable and 1 on your team. But what if you have 7? Well, good news! The stables and augments are shared across every copy of that familiar, so with 7 you can use 1 set of augments and have 2 plus 5 familiars in your team. It's really important to stable familiars, especially due to augments, so always keep that in mind when you're looking at what familiar to use. So I'm only going to be speaking about familiars you can get within the zones, world boss, and raids applicable in these videos. I'm going to separate invasion and expedition as those get more complex, and I'm not going to include familiars that can be found in one zone but you need something later on. Only what is in here, so if you're camping you can use these videos. We're going to start with tier 1. Very first familiar that you're going to look in here is called Booty. I want to include Booty because its name is hilarious, but also it's a pretty decent DPS familiar for this tier, which honestly that isn't really saying a lot. They have some built-in lifesteal to help with small amount of sustain, they have attack closest and drain closest skills. You're going to replace them ASAP, but they're worth mentioning because you will have them for sure, they're a part of the tutorial. Bubbo, on the other hand, is actually a serviceable tank for tier 1. Takes 1 Tubbo and 1 Baddie, has nearly 40% of its stats into health, and built-in 15% lifesteal, double that of Booty. Bubbo doesn't have any built-in tank stats though, but in tier 1 has some of the highest health you'll encounter, so they can be a short-lived meat shield. Up next you have Borlin. Borlin, sweet Borlin. Farm him with Bob and Merlin ASAP. He's half of the duo of familiars that can take you until you start looking at epics. Super low health, so you need to keep him safe, but he makes up for that with high attack and high speed. He has built-in 15% damage bonus and a 1 SP spread heal to help sustain your team. He is unmatched this early in the game. You'll replace him probably in tier 4, but he can honestly, he can run you all the way through tier 10 if you need it. I did want to mention Robbie. He gets a mention because you can get him with just tier 1 familiars, but he's like expensive. It takes 1 Gobby, which is the legendary goblin, and 5 robot sprockets. He has built-in 60% critical chance, a decent stat spread, and multiple damage skills along with a 2 SP spread heal. If you're camping tier 1 or even 2 and happen to have a bunch of Gobby, you might as well make him, but in the grand scheme of things, there are far better uses for your rare goblins. Let's look at tier 2. All the way there, tier 2. Moving into tier 2, you actually will start to get Shramps. This is the tank. You've probably seen his name mentioned in World Chat. If you're in the Discord, he's mentioned in the Discord all the time. He has more health than Tubbo, a built-in 30% chance to block, a 1 SP spread heal. This guy is the proto tank. If you farm Gramps and Shrump, he's gonna get you far enough. Especially when you have him at +5 and all those augments are really strong. Shramps can take you all the way to your next big tank, which is in tier 7 or 8. He will take you far. There are people that have beat the hard D4s using just him. Up next is Pings, and he's another familiar you might want to look into if you're camping tier 2, but otherwise he could be skipped over. It takes a Pingy and then the Grims from the very first dungeon. He gets a 22.5% speed boost and a few damage skills along with the target heal you can see there. Their main use though is being put into another fusion later called Korgs, which used to be top tier, but got outclassed pretty quickly. Unless you're camping, you can just skip him. So I know this isn't a super in-depth guide, but I needed to start somewhere, right? Is there a familiar that you think I skipped over in tiers 1 and 2 that should have been included? Which are your favorite familiars? Let me know in the comments down below, and good luck on your grind for the best familiars. Until then, may RNG be forever in your favor.